Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. I can't see the comments. Let me see. Nope. Okay, well, I am coming to you from my iPad this evening because something is wrong with the Wi-Fi on my computer and I have to hotspot my phone. So hopefully this will work. Hope you guys can see and hear me. As you come online, just go ahead and do me a favor and please leave a comment saying live or replay, however you're watching this video, whenever it is and from wherever you are. Tell me where you are too. I think that would be interesting for the rest of the group members if you guys all know, like, where's everybody located. So if you feel like sharing your location as well, that would be great. Oh, I see you, Amanda. So apparently it pops up and tells me when you guys are watching. Hopefully it will do that if someone makes a comment as well. I have so much to share with you tonight. This is one of my favorite subjects about digestion and how digestion and our mindset are all interconnected and the one influences the other. Digestion is really just a fundamental building block of health, overall health, not just physical health, but mental health and general well-being. So I'm excited to be here with you tonight, and it's okay if you don't really know anything about digestion. I didn't either before I took some classes and arrived at this place in my life, and all I knew was, okay, I'm hungry and I eat some food because I like that food and it tastes good and maybe it gives me some energy for a little while, and then again maybe it makes my tummy hurt also, and that's not good, but okay, and then eventually it comes out the other end when my body is done with it, right? That was, generally speaking, my broad understanding of digestion and how food works as it goes through the body. So that's okay. If that's where you're starting from, that's where most people start from. Obviously, unless we really remember high school biology, most of us have long forgotten those lessons if we ever had them. So what I will tell you is that digestion is so much more complicated than that. Let me say a different word. It's so much more involved than that. It's a very complex process of what happens in your body when you eat, what your mindset is when you eat, what happens to the food, what kinds of food you choose, where does all that food go, how does your body deal with it, and all of that. So we're going to cover probably just the wave tops of some of that tonight. And what I really also want you to do is, as we go along, like I said, hopefully I'll be able to see your questions because the watching notification popped up at the bottom of my screen here. Hopefully comments will too. But if I miss them, please leave them anyway, because if you have questions or there's something I say you'd like me to talk more about later, there's so much we could cover on digestion that I'll be happy to do, like a series of lives on this subject, if that would be helpful to you guys. So just as we go along, let me know your thoughts and comments, or if you have them later, come back and comment or send me an inbox message, whatever you want to do. I'm open to all of that. So let's talk first about digestion and mindset, because there was so much just about the relation between those two things that I didn't know, and a few more things. Oh, hi Sabrina, I see you watching too. So I just wanted to touch briefly on that component before we start talking about, like, what is digestion and what does it really involve for your body. So your digestive tract, if you were to like lay it out flat, all of your intestines and all the things that make up your digestive system, it would cover an entire tennis court. So it's by far the largest organ or system in your body. Yeah, system. So that's the size of all the components that go into your digestive tract. And there is also something that lies within the digestive system. It's called the vagus nerve. I had to write it down, make sure I got it right. And that nerve actually serves as a direct connection between your gut and your brain. So this concept of mind influencing gut influencing mind, like, that's a legit scientific thing. And what's interesting about that also is that sometimes the gut is called the second brain, because if something happened and that nerve were to become severed, your digestive system would continue to function. It's not dependent on that connection to survive, but that connection in most of us is there. So it's important to recognize that what's going on in your mind definitely sends nervous signals down to your gut, and the reaction that your gut has to both environmental factors and the food you eat sends signals, nervous system signals, back up the other direction to your brain. So just be aware that that connection is there. A few other interesting tidbits about your gut or your gut microbiome. Sometimes you'll hear it called that, or I'll call it that. About 80%, between 70 and 80% of your immune system resides in your gut microbiome. That's most of it, right? There's other parts of it in your lymph nodes and a few other spots in your body, but the vast majority of your immune system is in your gut. So, as logic would dictate, if something is wrong with your gut function, then something is going to be wrong with your immune system, right? So another thing is about 60 to 70% of the happy hormone serotonin. Most people at least have heard that word. That's the hormone your body produces when you're happy. And about 60 to 70% of it is actually produced in your gut, not your brain. It's produced in your brain too, but the vast majority of it comes from your gut environment. So similar to your happy factor, if you are similar to, what did I just say a second ago? Your immune system. Yes, similar to your immune system. If your gut is also malfunctioning, then you're probably not as happy either as you could be. You're not as happy and you're not as healthy, and it's all woven together. The other thing I wanted to say is this part I actually just relearned today about there is actual DNA inside obviously every cell in our body, but our gut microbiome, the cells that reside in that area of our body, have 150 times as much DNA in those cells in your gut than any other cell in your body. So when it comes to genetic expression and which genes, which elements of our personality or our being that are dominant over other ones, so much of that is controlled by what is happening in your gut microbiome, right? And I didn't know any of those factors before I started studying this stuff, that happiness, overall well-being, even which genes come out as dominant or recessive or expressed at this time or that time, like all of that is connected to the health of your digestive tract and your gut microbiome. Such a powerful place. So I think we would all agree that it is essential to having a long and happy and fruitful life that we take care of our gut microbiome in every way that we possibly can, now that we know that all these like fundamentally component factors either thrive or perish in that environment. So, okay, let's agree on that. Yes, that is true. Okay, so we would also then agree that the food that we consume and the thoughts that we think, the environmental factors that we expose ourselves to, all of that is stuff that our body takes in, that in some form or fashion is going to pass through our digestive tract. So we would be well served to be very aware and conscious of those things, right? And make the most healthy choices for our individual unique selves that we can, so that we can, this gut microbiome, we can like create the most healthy and thriving environment as we can for our own sakes, right? So as we talk through like what digestion looks like, let's just agree with those two things as sort of foundational principles. Yes, the happy gut, happy life, right? And yes, the things that we consume, be it food or environmental or even mental thoughts, all of that has a direct impact on the health of our gut. So we're going to start from that place. So the next logical thought you might be having is, okay, Rebecca, that's great, but how do I know what to eat or what to consume? Like, what's good, what's bad, how does it all work? And those questions we're definitely going to cover, but for right now, I'm going to get that last point. How does digestion actually work? Like, if I want to take in a bunch of really good things and have them go and do good things in my gut, well, let's first understand about the whole process, right? So if I were to ask you, where does digestion begin? Those of you that are here now, or as you listen to this on replay, just go ahead and type in the chat, where do you think digestion begins? I will wait for a second to see if I can see your comments as you make them, and I'm going to have some water. Okay, so several options there. You could say digestion begins in the mouth, or as we swallow, it begins in the stomach, or something along those lines is probably going to be the most common answer. In reality, digestion begins in the brain. I'm sure you're all shocked by that now, but it does. Like, think about what happens to your senses when you start thinking about food, right? Or like, you go to the movie theater when we could do that, and you smell popcorn, and your mouth is going to salivate if you like popcorn, right? Or you're at a barbecue, and the steaks or burgers or whatever, portobello mushrooms are on the grill, and you smell them. Okay, it's a sensory reaction that starts in your brain. It even starts if you just are thinking about your dinner, like, oh, I'm going to go home and make XYZ for dinner, and you love that meal, so you start thinking about it. And if you really pay attention to how your body reacts, you'll actually start producing saliva a little bit just from starting to think about food. So that's why we say that digestion really begins in the brain, right? So like the moment that we start thinking about food, and certainly if we start smelling food, it's going to wake up our digestive response. Saliva is going to start. When you put food in your mouth, the saliva actually contains digestive enzymes, and those enzymes are targeted specifically towards carbohydrates. So any kind of like vegetable or grain or starch that you eat is going to actually start being digested by the saliva that you're producing in your mouth. And then a huge component of proper digestion is how well you chew your food. God gave us all teeth for a reason, right? Pointy ones, flat ones, big ones for tearing. Like, most of us in this crazy world that we live in eat way too fast, and we chew way too little. And actually, I forgot one thing. Let me back up one step. Before you even put the food in your mouth, it's very, very critically important that you relax. So in your brain, you have two types of nervous systems, two states, let's say, that your nervous system can be in: sympathetic mode and parasympathetic mode. So otherwise known as fight or flight mode. This is your stress response. This is what happened when our ancestors were being chased by lions and needed to run for their lives. It's sympathetic mode. That's what that's called. I must run for my life or I'm going to die. That's the same physiological reaction that we have even now to stressors, be they environmental stressors, emotional stressors, whatever. And parasympathetic mode, on the other hand, is commonly called, oh, hi, Amanda, is commonly called rest and digest mode. So what's important to realize is that if stress is happening, you are running from the lion, trying not to die, digestion in that moment is not an essential function. So if you are eating food in a state of stress, which would never have happened if you were actually running from a lion, digestion is shut off because your body is focused on surviving. When cortisol is released and you're super stressed out, the only thing your body is focused on is surviving. That is your survival mode. So it's critically important that as you sit down to eat, generally anything, doesn't matter in this instance what you're going to eat. It matters way more that you take a breath and you relax. Even if you only have 3 minutes to eat, just sit in your car, at your desk, wherever you are. Take a few big belly breaths and flip that switch in your mind from, like, tell your body you do not have to run from the lion right now. It's okay to relax, because it's only when you are relaxed that digestion can actually happen. So if you're the kind of person like I used to be, like so many people in our society are, where you're just like glomming down food whenever you can because you're starving and you just got to get it in before that next meeting, or before your kids wake up, or before you arrive at the destination you're driving to, whatever the case may be. If those are the moments that you're choosing to eat, you can eat in those moments, but please make a conscious effort to do what I just said. And as you're driving, breathe and then eat, because otherwise you are sort of breaking the whole digestive process before it's even begun. And then back to the teeth in our mouth that God gave us. Like, I'm sure we all know this person. For me, it's my stepdad. Love you, Keith. But like, he eats so slow, right? Like, he is always the last person at the table eating his meal, whatever meal it is. He just eats really slow. I'm sure our grandparents, aunts, uncles, somebody we know is this way. They just take forever to eat. Well, guess what? They're doing it the right way, because they're probably sitting down and they're nice and relaxed, and every time they put a mouthful in, they're actually using their teeth and they're chewing their food. Chewing their food, so that when the food goes down the gullet into the stomach, it's already mostly broken down. And you'll hear lots of numbers out there about how many times you should chew each mouthful of food before you swallow it in order to enable your digestive system to function optimally. It's usually somewhere between 20 and 40 times per mouthful of food. That's how many times you should chew each and every mouthful of food. This is why our loved ones take forever to eat, because they're actually doing that. They're actually taking the time to chew. For me, a good comparison, so that I don't have to sit there and count in my head, because that gets very tedious and then I can't focus on anything else because I can't math very well in my brain. So I just focus on chewing my food, making sure I pass it around on big teeth, sharp teeth, all the teeth, get the food, and I just chew whatever it is that I'm eating until it sort of like becomes mushy, like it has the consistency of baby food, for example. I try to chew each bite until it gets to that point, and then I swallow it, because now I have really helped out my stomach, which is responsible for further breaking down that food. So down the esophagus goes the food into your stomach, where the vast majority of digestion happens. We all recognize that point. So let's talk about the stomach. The stomach is designed to be a highly acidic environment. Like on the pH scale from 0 to 9, your stomach, when it is digesting food, is going to be like between 1.5 and 3. It's a highly acidic environment. That is the way it is supposed to be, because stomach acid has 2 chief points. First of all, it cleans your food, right? So anything that goes down the hatch with the food, germs, whatever, air, contaminants from the air, anything that goes down when the food goes down and enters your stomach, that's the point of stomach acid, otherwise known as hydrochloric acid. It cleans your food so that as those contents go further into your body, they don't make you sick. But if you don't have enough stomach acid, your food doesn't get cleaned thoroughly enough. Similarly, if you don't have enough stomach acid, job number 2 of the stomach is continuing to break down and emulsify that food so that it becomes like basically liquid, right? The stomach acid, we've all seen acid poured on things, right? It sort of like liquefies everything. That's what the stomach is supposed to do. It's supposed to finish liquefying your food. I say finish because your teeth and your saliva start that process. So one very, very common, and I would venture to say nearly everyone, especially as we age, have this problem. Most of us do not have sufficient amounts of hydrochloric acid in our stomachs. Our stomachs, for whatever reason, and there's a host of reasons I'll skip over for now, but I can definitely explain later. There's so many reasons why our stomach doesn't produce enough acid. So I'm going to give you this analogy because most of the time, if you've ever had like heartburn or indigestion or anything like that, and especially if you've gone to see a doctor about it, most likely, not always, but most likely your doctor, you take a Tums or some other antacid, or in extreme situations, you take what's called a proton pump inhibitor, which basically what that bad boy does is turns off the acid production in your stomach. Turns it off completely. Let's think about that in the context of what I just said is the two chief jobs of hydrochloric acid. So, probably not the best solution for your stomach to have zero ability to produce hydrochloric acid anymore. So, more on that subject later too. But really, what your stomach needs is a lot of acid. So what really causes heartburn or acid reflux or any of those kinds of things? Okay, so think about leftovers sitting in your fridge. We've all had leftovers. We've put them in a Tupperware. Oh, my eyeball itches. Hold on. Sorry. We put them in a Tupperware, right? And we put the lid on and we put it in the fridge. Life happens, and 3 weeks later we find that really disgusting Tupperware container with that food that's just been sitting in it, sealed up for however long. And were you to, pop the top off that Tupperware to clean it up, to throw it away and clean it up, if you were to actually want to save the container and not just pitch the whole thing, if you were to pop the top, what would happen? It'd kind of go, right? There would be a release of pressure and gas. That is what happens to your food if it sits in your stomach for too long. If you do not have enough stomach acid to properly finish breaking down your stomach contents, your food, your stomach has this valve at the bottom, right? And that valve only goes one way, out. That valve that allows your stomach contents to go into your small intestine, which is where nutrient absorption happens, that valve is not going to open until your stomach contents are acidic enough or the pressure builds enough that it's forced to open, right? The valve at the top, your esophagus, this one, or well, it's more like here, but this one is designed to go both ways, up and down, because food has to go down and sometimes we legitimately have to vomit. So when your food is not digesting fast enough or thoroughly enough because you don't have enough stomach acid, all that pressure and gas is building up in your stomach. And similar to with the Tupperware, eventually that gas is going to force the food out the other end, but it's also going to come up into your esophagus a little bit. Your esophagus is not designed to have any acid in it. So when like the smallest, most minute piece of acid or acidic vapors even comes up into your esophagus, it's going to burn. That is heartburn. And as I hope you can see now, it's not caused by too much stomach acid. It's caused by too little. So there are absolutely ways to help your body out and teach your stomach how to produce more hydrochloric acid and completely resolve any kind of hydrochloric acid, stomach acid level issues, heartburn issues, acid reflux issues. You can actually correct all of that with nutrition and proper supplementation. You do not need pharmaceuticals, in my opinion. Broadly speaking, generally, you do not need pharmaceuticals to correct that condition. Now, Tums or whatever is gonna help the immediate burn when that situation occurs, but you certainly, in my opinion, broadly speaking, don't need to be turning off stomach acid for all the reasons I just mentioned. So, wanted to share that with you all. So, what happens then let's say you have that condition, right? Your stomach is just sitting there rotting, basically. The fats are turning rancid, the proteins are putrefying, and the carbohydrates are actually fermenting, like sauerkraut or sourdough bread would do. That's what's actually happening to the components of your food. So, but let's say the pressure has built up too much, and now this lower valve is forced open, and your stomach contents move on along the digestive path, and they go into your duodenum, the upper part of your small intestine. But they're not really digested correctly, right? Because you didn't have enough acid. So the food particles are too big. They're not supposed to be in your small intestine in that size at that time. But your body didn't have any choice because, Tupperware, there it goes. So then what happens? Well, the upper part of your small intestine, and actually your whole upper intestinal tract, that is where nutrient absorption happens. So you have a bunch of like little hair-like follicles that line your small intestine. They're called villi. And normally when stomach contents come out, if your digestion is functioning optimally, it's going to be mostly liquid. So everything's fine for the villi. They filter out all the stuff that doesn't need to go into the body, and they pass it on along to the large intestine, which does a few things and then kicks it out the back end, right? But no damage happens to the villi. So your intestinal wall is permeable. It's one of the few places in your body where substances can pass across the cell membrane and into the bloodstream directly. So these villi, it's their job to keep harmful substances out of the bloodstream, and so and push waste or other harmful substances on along to your large intestine so that they're not absorbed by your bloodstream. Well, when when stomach contents enter the small intestine undigested, then they're too big. So the villi, like, they kind of bang around on the villi, and over time the villi are like, I can't do my job anymore. And so the villi become all damaged, right? And they really have a hard time filtering stuff out the way that they should. So undigested or underdigested foodstuffs cross the membrane into your bloodstream larger than they should be, or they shouldn't be there at all. And that is where a lot of gastrointestinal issues come from. That's where a lot of autoimmune conditions start. That is where you will sometimes have like really irritated lower abdominal feelings. You could even have an allergic reaction because when those bigger than they should be food particles go into your bloodstream, your body's not going to recognize it as nutrients. It's going to think a foreign invader has just landed in your bloodstream, and it's going to send an inflammatory, protective, healing response to that area, which is why our guts get swollen. And it's going to try to kill and eradicate whatever it is that just came into the bloodstream. Sometimes that causes allergic reactions elsewhere on your body, like rashes, sneezing, all the symptoms that we normally would associate with like a food allergy. Sometimes it's not, sometimes it legitimately is a food allergy, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just a reaction to improperly or under-digested food, because your villi are like, I'm trying, but I can't do it, because this has been happening for so long. So digestive issues are cumulative over time. So the other thing, that's really, I think I'm going to stop there because I'm already going a little longer than I intended. But you can see how if something is broken upstream, right? If you're not relaxed when you eat, if you are stressed, if you are running from that lion, if you do not chew properly, so that if you just glom down your food and you really make it hard on your stomach, and then if your stomach is struggling for whatever reason, doesn't have the right amount of hydrochloric acid, then your stomach is really going to struggle, right, to digest things the way that it should. And then the food's going to force its way to the small intestine, and then those villi over time are just going to be like crippled. Ulcerative colitis, to an extent, celiac disease, like all kinds of autoimmune conditions like that, irritable bowel syndrome. It's all a part of the brokenness of this process from north to south. So then, like on the back end, if you're not getting the nutrients that you need, when now your whole gut microbiome is not optimal, right? So you've got serotonin levels that aren't what they should be. Who knows what's happening to whatever DNA expressions are going on in there. Your immune system is compromised. You're probably going to get sick, in addition to having like bubble gut or rumbly tummy or really bad gas or all those common digestive issues. Like you're probably going to get more colds. You might get more UTIs as a woman. You might really struggle with paying attention for extended amounts of time. This brain fog concept, it's all connected, ladies, and it's like this cascade of broken digestion from top to bottom, the way that I just described. So in closing, since I can't see any of your comments just yet, unfortunately, I'm going to go back and look at them, but what I want to leave you with is that was just the tip of the iceberg. I know it took me about 30 minutes to run through all of that, but really that's just the tip of the iceberg on how fundamentally important fueling your body properly and digesting that fuel properly from a place of rest and relaxation in your mind is so critically important, because on the back end, like, you're not going to get the signals back to your brain that you need from happiness and immune strength and all of that. So it's just going to become this cycle of ill feeling or feeling not well. Like it's just going to be sort of systemic until you can reach a place where you can interrupt the broken process and start to heal. And so that, I hope, is what I want to teach you. It's what I'd like to talk to you about as we go along. So if any of this spoke to you and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, Rebecca, I have one or all of those things. It definitely resonates with me. My digestion is broken in some or in part, whatever. Let me know. Like, leave a comment, send me a message. Ask me your questions. Like I said in the beginning, I really want to know, like, what part of this resonated with you. What parts do you want me to talk about further? There's many different ways that I can help you resolve this cascading ill effect of broken digestion, so that you can be happier and you can enjoy your food and you can be healthier and you can be stronger with your immune defense system, which is so fundamentally important, especially now. And all of that also, ladies, will make you sleep better. It will reduce inflammation in your whole body. Your joints will stop hurting. You'll find your energy again. All of this that I've been talking about, reclaiming your vitality, like really igniting that warrior spirit that we all have inside of us, like this mindset and digestion, those are the pillars. Those are the foundational pillars, both of them, and they're connected. So I hope you've liked or found some benefit or learned something at a minimum from what I've shared with you this evening. I have really enjoyed it. Like I said, this is one of my favorite subjects to talk about because it applies to everybody in some form or fashion. So let me know your thoughts, and don't forget to say replay if you watch this on the replay. And otherwise, I will see you next time. Have great weeks, and thank you all for being here.